diet, that four-letter word that we hate to hear and hate to do. I'm sure you've been at a part in your life where you've gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, lost weight. It's a yo-yo situation. Well, I have someone here today that's going to help us with that. We have Ashley White from
Learn to Be Well.
Thank you, Ashley. Learn to Be Well, who has gone through that scenario and has found her way out and knows how to deal with this. So we're going to get Ashley to talk a little bit about the walk.
The walk.
The walk.
So I'm a certified health coach and nutritionist, and I was trained at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition.
Okay.
And when we think about diet, inherently we think about a massive industry that everyone knows about that's trying to sell you something.
Exactly.
And so if you think about, okay, if I'm going to be successful on a diet, that means that I'm going to use their products, I'm going to use their services, and inherently they want me to be a returning customer. You know? So diets are set up for you to fail. And that's the industry. And if you think about diets in terms of restriction and categories and compartmentalization of food, then you also think about, I think about diets as a form of self-abuse. It's a way of saying, well, I don't deserve to eat food that tastes really good and that I prepare myself.
Well, exactly. And when you are dieting, you deprive yourself of what you really love, that piece of cake, the piece of pie, a drink of pop, the whole bit, you know. So then you feel guilty and then it starts all over again.
And so I work with clients to help them build an intuitive understanding of what their body needs. Because when we eat food that loves us back, we find that actually 2 or 3 bites of a chocolate cake is fine. And,
that's right.
And that's okay.
Right.
And there's no need to feel guilty about that.
Right.
But a lot of women are so concerned about how to eat well, how to eat the best way possible and making no mistakes, that they end up self-sabotaging.
That's right.
And I work with them to identify, what are the barriers for them to either lose weight or maintain energy. And for me, weight is often a symptom. So when a client comes, often it's, well, I have no energy and I'm overweight. Or I don't sleep and I'm overweight. Or I'm addicted to coffee and I'm overweight. And if we treat the root problem, then often the weight issue resolves itself.
And you know what you're talking about because you've gone through that yourself, haven't you?
A long time, yeah. So I work particularly both with people with disordered eating pasts. One of the things that I experienced when I was going through my own therapy was that there were a lot of people that were going to help address the root issues, but then when it came to getting back into my life and saying, okay, now I have to go to a restaurant, and I need someone to help me through the real life part of
the day-to-day activities.
Yeah, and that's what a health coach does.
Oh, okay.
And it works for people who are compulsive overeaters or just overeaters, people who just tend to not know how much to eat or how much to eat of what things, and they're concerned that it's affecting their quality of life.
Exactly. So what can someone expect if someone goes to you? So what happens? What do you do?
Okay, so we sit in a really comfortable environment. I rent space at the Hub, which is on Bank Street, and we sit and we talk basically about the patterns that have gone before. Okay. So what is that person's food story, and how do we rewrite this story? Okay. So I start with a very comprehensive health history. So what foods did you eat as a child, and what foods do you eat now? Okay. If you could do 3 things right now to improve your health, what would they be? And I help tap into that person's motivation. So we do coaching sessions. So we sit for about an hour. I try to meet with my clients every week because that builds the momentum.
Well, yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and then I give handouts, lessons. A lot of it's education. So I do a lot of teaching.
Right, which is important.
Yeah, and then you walk away from every session sort of with an action plan, with a game plan. Okay. It's not a list of food or a list of categories.
Well, that was my next question. Do they walk away with, okay, I can only eat this, and this? No.
No.
Okay.
I do work on something called a personal food framework. So I do help people understand, okay, these are the foods that are probably going to serve me. Right. And these are the foods that I really like to eat. Right. They're probably going to nurture me in a really big, comprehensive way. And then there are other types of foods that I should probably limit in my life. And if I find myself gravitating towards sugar, for example, then there's something going on there. And that's how I work to help them understand.
Oh, I see. You get them to release whatever is holding them there.
Yeah.
That craving.
So, yes. And so when we think about cravings, there's 8 main reasons that people crave things, right? Okay. And one of them is cravings of ghost past. Right. So when we have say I'm really stressed out, right? And when I was stressed out as a kid, my mom would make me biscuits.
Exactly. And so, oh yes, I know that.
Right. So I crave biscuits. And if I'm not someone who's aware of what my brain is doing to my body, one of the analogies that's really useful is if we think of our body as a little baby, like a crying baby.
Okay.
And then if we think of our mind as the mother. And so with a real baby and a real mom, the mom knows how to interpret the baby's cries. They say, oh, well, she needs to be changed, she needs to eat, she needs to sleep. And if you think about our mind as needing to interpret the signals of our body, because so much of the food that we do eat is really overprocessed and really toxic, we lose the ability to say, oh, that's what my body needs. And that's how I work with clients.
Okay, so there's an emotional attachment is what you're saying. Why somebody wants that cookie or the drink of water.
I mean, of course, and everything in moderation.
That's right.
Like, so we try to work on 80-20, 90-10.
That's right, okay. So you don't have to stop having that piece of cake or that glass of wine. I mean,
because you're gonna incorporate in your mind right here. That's all you're gonna
so you can incorporate that into your day-to-day.
And I work with everyone differently. So everyone comes with. There's no plan or program, and there's no certain pace at which you must work.
Okay. So how long would it take now if someone goes to you and they want? First of all, they want to lose the weight. They have to have that mindset.
Certainly.
It's gonna. I mean, there's work involved here. And
So when people tend to go on diets and they succeed in losing the weight initially, they tend to lose weight very quickly. Like
That's right.
But when people lose weight permanently, they actually lose weight in this way.
Yes.
But it stays down.
Exactly.
So for people who are sort of saying, I'm never dieting again, it doesn't work, and I end up hating myself after. Working with me is a way of saying, all right, we're going to go right into your body. A lot of people who have been dieting for their whole lives have no idea when they're hungry. They don't know when they're hungry.
That's right.
And so one of our first things to do is say, okay, we're going to connect with our hunger. A lot of journaling, a lot of scales. So we build a hunger scale that's unique to the individual.
That's awesome. Now, how long would it take for how many sessions? I guess it depends on the person's situation, how long it would take.
Ideally between 8 to 12 weeks of meeting every week, depending on the goals, and depending on how far, like for people who have dieted a lot, they tend to know what foods are healthy and what foods are not.
Exactly.
And so my education component is different. So my education is about, we talk a lot about self-care and lifestyle suggestions, gratitude. One of the things I make my clients do is every time they're going to eat, even if it's a snack, even if it's something that is really not going to be supportive of their health, I make them sit with a placemat and a piece of cutlery, and you have to sit down and you have to say, because I mean, if we're snacking and we're trying to pretend that we're not snacking and we're trying to shove something else down, we don't want to sit at a table with a nice placemat and embrace the idea that, yes, I'm going to eat a chocolate bar right now, even though I'm not hungry.
So what you're doing is making them really conscious of what they're doing.
Hyper-conscious.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a good trick.
It's a very good trick. It's one of the many tricks of the trait. Yeah.
That's right. Now, is it different for men? Do you get men?
Yes.
Men clients come in?
Yeah. Men often tend to not have the same types of emotional relationships with food, mostly because they don't respond to sugar and chocolate in the same way. That's very biochemical and very hormonal as well.
Exactly.
But often, especially now, men are under a lot of pressure to look a certain way, and a lot of them are developing problematic relationships with food.
Exactly. Now, what if someone has lost their weight and now they're very concerned, they don't want to put the weight back on, so they're not having the cake, they're not having the pie, they're just not enjoying any of the foods. Could they come to you?
Yeah, sure.
And you can work with them that way also.
Exactly. I mean, that's a person who's still living in a lot of fear.
Exactly.
A lot of people who succeed on diets, they still don't have the mind of a thin person. You know, they're like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I'm gonna gain that weight back. I know it's gonna happen. And so we need to take them out of that fear place and make them realize that they're committed to their own success. Like look how much work they've already done.
Exactly.
And so I help them to make a stronger commitment to their own success, and I'm committed to their success. And so we work to build moderate tools.
So you go both ways.
Yes,
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, do you have children? Do you get young? Because now there's such a problem with obesity in children these days.
And the great thing about working with children is I'm working with some young teenagers right now.
Yes.
The great thing about working with children is that they know when they're hungry. They do know. Even if they're overweight, they still are like, oh, I'm hungry.
Okay.
Often they don't know how to stop, and so if you can equip an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old with the vocabulary to talk about their hunger, then you're building really strong life lessons. So often, for example, if a mother is concerned that their child is eating seconds and thirds of
Right.
every meal,
Yes.
even though they couldn't possibly be that hungry,
Right.
then I help the parent and the child
I
develop
was gonna
a
ask you that,
language
yes.
around hunger.
Okay.
So I would say a 10 is very, very full.
Right.
All right, and a 5 is about satiated.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you want to eat when you're about a 7 or an 8.
Oh,
all
okay.
right? So before the fight happens around, no, you cannot have 3 helpings
Yes.
of that.
Okay.
You start helping the child and the parent talk about their hunger scale. So the kid will say, oh, but I'm still a 7. I had 1 serving, but I really, and then getting the child to describe, okay, I'm a bit faint, I have a rumble in my belly,
Oh, okay.
that kind of thing.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, we need those kinds of programs.
Yeah.
And do you teach, because parents automatically want to feed the kids, you know, oh, they're hungry, shovel the food.
Yeah.
Do you have courses or
Yeah,
for parents to come in and just learn about,
Sure.
okay,
So I can do workshops, for example.
Right.
I'm very, very flexible in terms of how I teach. So
Okay.
for every individual program that I have, there's also a group program counterpart.
okay,
So, for example, if a group of mothers were to come to me and say, actually, we think we'd like to work for a couple hours on this thing,
right.
then I'll build a program for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm
you,
very,
yeah,
very
you design it
flexible.
to
Yeah.
different personalities.
And then we work with their budget and that kind of thing. So I basically, I want to work with as many people as possible.
That's wonderful.
Always going back to the root of the connection with food and the relationship with food.
Wow, and that's a big problem these days,
It's a
isn't
huge
it?
problem.
And all
It's
this
a huge
processed
problem.
food and the children being obese, yes, we need.
And layered onto body image issues again. Is
Exactly,
very important.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, to learn more about Ashley, log on to techmagsocial.com and you'll get all her information there. So if you're interested or you want to learn more about the programs and how Ashley can help you or your teenager or your child, contact Ashley. We know she can help you. Thank you, Ashley, for coming in.
Thank you.
It was great to hear from you.
Great.